Well, hello there, everybody, on this Thursday. How are y'all doing? So good to see you. Um, this is the Thursday gathering of the family. That's how I kind of look at it. Uh, I mean, you have to have something that, kind of distinguishes Thursday because it's a get together now. We just want to say thank all of you for tuning in. And as are we live? That's what I'm asking. Uh,
It doesn't look like we are. It shows that we're waiting.
yeah, yeah, that's odd.
Interesting.
Wow.
Um, they may be
Oh, here we go.
blocking
Here we
this.
go. It's just
Oh,
showing up now.
okay.
Maybe it's a delay.
Wow.
Maybe it was a longer delay than
It's a
usual.
big delay.
It was a big delay. Well, anyway, we're here, so I guess they have said it. Well, let's just see what they're going to say, and then who knows? But anyway, we speak favor over all of us over this situation that's happening and unfolding here in America and the disasters that are unfolding in other places. The world could use a lot of favor, and this group is good at it. We can invoke favor, we cast favor, we speak favor. It's abracadabra, baby, all the way across the board. So that's how we hang, and nothing missing, nothing broken. So, and that world, by the way, is peace. You ain't got nothing broken, nothing missing. You're doing okay. So, Mike and Cindy, how are y'all? Boy,
Hi.
every time we get
Greetings.
together, it just seems like the old pressure cooker is just being ratcheted up a little bit more.
It sure is. Yeah, June 12th, 2025. Big times. Big changes. You could feel it. It's like somebody lit a fuse. That's why I said to Cindy this morning, do you feel it? It feels like somebody lit a fuse and we're just waiting for something to boom.
Mhm.
I was out shopping earlier today, had to get some things, and went into a couple of different stores, and it was really weird because everybody, when I was talking to the checkout people, they're tired.
Yeah.
Now, these people are not enlightened or, they're this good, everyday common folk. But in the two different stores, both of the people at the cashier and the others said that they woke up extremely tired.
I do think there's many purposes for that. Yeah, there's more than one purpose. But part of it obviously, I mean, the skies today feel very fake. So, we understand all the particulates that are in the skies and the frequencies around us. The ascension process itself, with having to go through and purge our trauma so we could grow, and also we're at a new age, so we're getting rid of DNA trauma that's been inflicted on our forefathers as well, and our genetic heritage. It's huge. I mean, the energy and weight of these times can be overwhelming.
Ascension is not for the weak.
Oh no.
No, no, it's tough work. It's hard. And
It is hard. There's nothing easy about it. I mean, it's a
no,
wonderful place to be, but wow. You
the
know?
universe has ways to make us face things, It's like your soul contracts kind of come up and you really know when you're starting to feel backed up against the wall and there's a thing that you have not faced and the universe or higher self says, okay, it's time to face this. Really, I haven't found any other options but to hit it head on, which actually is like popping a balloon, because once you do that, it takes away all the stress and releases pressure.
It does. I'm in the next Thursday will be my 70th birthday, so it's always that thing that, as they say in the walk of all of ours, if there's certain milestones that you hit, you know,
That's a huge one.
that is a huge one. But as I look back on the 25,182 days that I have been on this planet, everything that I have accomplished that I really had to focus in on was never easy. nothing in my life has ever been just handed to me. It is I had to work. And the thing about it is, and I'm sure it's the same with y'all, they don't give you a manual. You
Mm-mm.
know, they don't tell you what you're supposed to do and what you're not. You know, and it's like, wow, okay. Uh,
Well, with expressing yourself through expansion, I think, I see it as a spiral, and we go out as far as we can and we express ourselves, and it's like hitting, kind of hitting off the walls, realizing it's like, okay, I expanded too far there, can't do that, or I expanded too far there, can't do that. But it is a spiraling process, and it just goes wider and wider, and it does come with a lot of lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my family, I think, thought I was having a midlife crisis because I changed everything in my life, everything. And yet it was 42. So astrologically, that's when you're really coming of age at 42.
mm-hmm.
If we were in tribes right now, I mean, you would be so put up on a pedestal. Not that you're not by both of these families, which are one big family, but even more so, we would recognize what you've gone through. You have so much wisdom to share, and from
Who's
the
that?
you,
Me?
you,
I'm trying to think of, well, let's talk about that. I don't, yeah, through my lens, I just find myself, I'm just a, really simple individual, you know, don't got no degree, got a
Between
PhD in life.
I
yeah,
know, I mean, between the three of us, I think we got pushing 200 years of understanding, wisdom,
We could
mistake.
start a university.
we could.
We
I'm
could.
telling you, we could.
No, but in all of these 200 years, I don't know about you two and those in there, I've never felt this big of a pregnant thing
Pause.
about to
Mm.
burst.
Yeah, yeah,
This feels big.
it
Uh,
is, and honestly, I thought we were going to be where we are right now is where I thought we would have been last year. So, my timing was off, and then I was hoping maybe we push those timelines totally away. But now it's starting to feel like those timelines are coming about now, and so that makes me wonder: did we just push it back a year? Well, I mean, if we pushed it back a year, did we just squish in into a smaller period of time, a troubled time that's going to be full of obstacles, to overcome? I hope so. I do think, again, each consciousness, it contributes to this. And I've had a few like revelations, like when you hear things, but then they don't sink in. I mean, there's so much in this world that people say things, and we might even bring up a saying that you've said 50 times, 100 times or more, but do you really understand the saying? I think that is part of the ascension process, is all of a sudden coming to these realizations, such as, we could see the manipulation going on in the world. It's so beyond obvious. It's so scripted in so many ways, and yet here it is. It's still rolling out before our very eyes.
I can't help but not think that the reverberations of July 13th, 2024 are still not having severe aftershocks, if you're saying, because that day, and I believe the historians in the future will write about that day, it was the day that the world changed. I mean, literally. And that was with this miraculous event that took place with Trump. And now we're starting to see the fruition of the vision of that individual who, I guess rightfully so. I mean, I never had that happen to me, but he's on a mission of God. And I
mhm.
just wish that John Belushi was still alive because he could probably give Trump some good advice, you know. Just saying, but it's happening. And Cindy, you used the word pregnant. And isn't it, what is it in Matthew 23:24,
Mhm,
where Jesus said that in the end times there will be the times of travail as a woman giving birth?
mhm.
Oh my gosh, it's something when you're pregnant, you have no choice but to give birth. Once that baby's cooked and ready to go, you know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, and you kind of know what to expect, but not really. So I think it's very fitting where we're all kind of going, we've gone through this pregnancy together with all of this buildup and all of this growth. And we're in a time where I think we're growing a lot emotionally and physically and all kinds of ways, positively, but it's been painful, just like pregnancy can be very painful and uncomfortable. And a lot of things come up that are just almost intolerable, but you have to go through it because now you're going to deliver this new energy into the world. And that's what
That is the question. What are we giving birth to?
oh boy. Yeah. And I do believe it's up to us, the masses.
Yeah. I mean, the book of Revelation talks about the great dragon giving birth, and that it's in the celestial stars. And it's interesting how, and there's no doubt that we're in the, when I heard today about the 787 Dreamliner that crashed in, it was at Mumbai in India. I have flown a lot on that aircraft. That is probably one of the most safest aircrafts that out there, in my opinion. And 242 souls lost. We're now seeing in America, they have Flag Day, I guess Saturday is the day that they want 120 cities to burn. We just saw the prelims to all of this, and now it's going to be spreading throughout the country. These are all, it takes a great deal of energy to produce this. Violence pulls a lot of energy. So something is making a great demand upon whether you want to call it the collective consciousness of humanity, you want to call it the energy at flow, because if people who don't talk about these things, but they will converse and saying, I'm tired today. The other lady says, I am tired as well. And that to me, I'm sitting there, right? And I'm hearing this voice in my head saying, Hey, Steiger, look what's going on here. You have energy being pulled into what they want. They're deliberately wanting a fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. This is all very scripted, and it's not even just from one tradition. It's in many traditions. But I do think that it's not set in stone, because again, there's so many things that didn't come to pass, like all the timelines that Edgar Casey gave us.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't come to fruition. Now they may come to fruition 40 years later. But at the same time, that might be consciousness pushing things back, and maybe it gives us more time to prepare as well.
Someone asked earlier, how can we counter this? The only way I know to do is come together on a worldwide basis. And much like Ringo Starr, and his birthday in July, I think it's 7th, he wants the day of love. Everyone say to another person, love you, man, and it's a simple gesture. It's a simple word, but yet that word, I back in my theology days, I can quote you the scripture and verse, and it says, love covers a multitude of sin. All right. Well, love in this case and sin would be that which is negative to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Humans don't want to be hit on. Humans don't want to be, you know, um, when people get completely agitated, the riots, that's not humanity's best, and that's not what humanity wants. But yet, it's featured on every screen. All these black boxes now are repeating that. So I think that the only way to come against this, against their agenda, is that every channel just says, hey, on Saturday, I'm just going to think love and humanity. No big deal. Nothing more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then you get crickets, unfortunately. Because that's what happens. Is it not that the people don't want that? It's certainly, like our core watchers, our real family here, they're all about transitioning to a more positive time period. The system doesn't want it. So they suppress it as much as they possibly can. They won't let it rise in the algorithms.
Well, and
This,
that's why you have to be tenacious.
yep,
Yeah,
You
you
really
do.
do. Yeah.
yep.
So,
You
all
do.
right. So, yeah.
And the other thing that we can do is learn about that Buddhist detachment where you see what's going on, but you don't give it your energy because there's this second layer of entities that you're right, they are feeding. And I see that. And I see when there's a lot of trauma around, I see these things feeding off of that trauma. So, and there is, I've uh, come to this understanding through information that I've gotten through channeling that these are created for the second layer beings to feed off of. So sometimes once you know that or understand that part, you're able to say, hey, I don't want to feed that. I'm going to find a different way to be a human being, not a human doing, and just sit and be and not allow them to feed because they will. They're just like any other parasite. They want to eat, they want to live.
And they're very real.
And they're very real.
If you look at Moses burning bush and you say, well, that almost sounds like a jinn. It's like a being that's made out of fire. We actually caught a jinn on camera. We have several videos where we show it. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it literally did kill a whole herd of.
Yeah. I remember you telling me.
Yeah, and we have it captured. So today I touched on that, and I was like, just showing some of the videos that we did, and I went and looked at how our video this morning was doing. I came back an hour later; it was at exactly the same number. 1 hour later, are you kidding me? They've actually taken videos. They took one before, and they sent me a message with putting 86 on the number of views for the video that had like thousands, but they kept it 86 views to say this is off the menu. This is something you're not allowed to bring up. So, this is what the system does. And truly, there is truth behind our myths and legends, like these beings like the jinn are very real. I mean, we've had them, wreak havoc with us at times. And we've cleared countless, thousands of people that have had these disruptive energies in their homes and their lives. We've helped them to banish them out. But again, it's the same thing for anybody. Jesus, again, could cast out demons, but the person goes back to all the sins, they're going to call them right back into themselves. So, that's where you run into if the person, the individual, has to make the decision to change their life and not open up these doors. But these doors are opened up by the very system. Often, it's through the media, through these entities use the internet as a highway. We've seen entities come straight through a router, and one go and hit her, and the other came and hit me. This happened to us in New Mexico, again, clearing energy for somebody that was plagued with these dark energies. So very real spiritual warfare, and that's interdimensional warfare is what it is.
Yeah. I was had encounters of that. And as you were talking, by the way, happy birthday, Nina. Didn't know it. We just give you a big birthday hug. Another
Happy
year
birthday.
around the old star, as they would say. So there is this, I don't know, you could say that it's been pushed off, but yet throughout humanity's modern history, it's been soaked with human blood. They feed quite regularly, and there has probably just been a little lull. And the way that I see to combat this is to the energy that's being drawn towards this is, truly of the sine wave would be the lower end of the sine wave. That's where the sin comes in, where if you hit the top of that, you're above the sine, above the sin. And you have two choices here, folks. Once you allow your fear to attach to that and where you become drawn to constantly watch that, those are warning signs. Because what you're doing is that you're channeling your energy into this. Whereas, look at it like this. If you have this intensity of anger, what would be the opposite of that? I would say it would be the pentacle of passion,
Mm-hmm.
making love, orgasmic.
Mm-hmm.
It requires deep concentration, deep focus, but there is the reward of that is the endorphin dump, the
Mm-hmm.
pleasure. And when a human is in pleasure, they're not in the killing mode. Typically, I don't know. I haven't ever met someone that divide that. But and I think sometimes that the frustration is one person said, could you he's dealing with the gloom of futility. Now, that's dangerous because
Mm-hmm.
when you get to that point where it's futility, um, that's nihilism. You have no hope. That's despair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, realizing where we are in the process is something that should give you hope, because we've actually shifted the ages. We've changed the ages. We've changed the yugas. It's going to take time for that to manifest. But what we have right now is the exposing of the system for what it is, and
Mm-hmm.
no longer does 99.9% of the population believe the system has all the answers. That's been slowly getting whittled away. You don't trust the mainstream
Did they
media.
have any of the answers?
Right, yeah, that's what it looks
I
like
mean,
in
it's
our time.
crazy.
Yeah, well, the answers were all about, again, them maintaining control of profits from that control. But again, it's going to be a time of turmoil, because what choice do they have as humanity wakes up to what's really been going on, than to cause us to literally fight for our very lives in some way? That's the only thing they can do, is throw something at us that will have us distracted from what's been transpiring, in that realization that, yeah, you can't trust the mainstream media. You can't trust anything in the system that's taken to be mainstream, whether it's how you work to try to find health and well-being in your life, spiritual well-being, and obviously geopolitical. All that is being wiped away, and people are recognizing now it's all been just a house of cards. The house of cards will collapse. It's going to. It's just making it so that we all don't end up under that house of cards.
You said it's interesting that they want to control the profit. And I'm assuming you mean profit, but it's interesting. They also have been controlling the profit.
Yes.
There people today do not realize, but there are literally those who are anointed to be in the office of the prophet. Now, it isn't tied to one religion, although there's a number of religions who have tied that to it. Mankind has always had the prophets. We've always had the seers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because if you're a control mechanism, then what are you going to do? You want to control the prophet on both ends. That which speaks of that which is yet to come, and yet you're harvesting that which has already been harvested.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
You know?
coming out of like fundamentalist Christian circles, everything is taken to be the will of God, as if you have no choice but simply to side with God or side with Satan. It's kind of like that sales thing, which do you prefer, the brown shoes or the black shoes? As long as you buy the shoes, from the vendor,
I
he's
don't know. Brown, brown only goes with a blue suit. I always prefer black because black is everywhere. But Mike, on top, you see, and that's why I love these conversations, these times of sharing consciousness, is that so I was used in the gifts of the Spirit to where if someone was speaking in tongues, I got the interpretation. I've also been used in large groups, and when the word of prophecy came, it came through me. And was distinctly aware of my own consciousness, but I was also in tune to, and it's interesting, as the older you get, you see these things and then you filter them in a little different way. But nevertheless, it was viable, it was tangible. And many times what was prophesied did in fact come to pass. And in fact, Paul wrote in First Corinthians um, that we should prophesy over one another. Now, you don't see that happening today.
Mm-mm.
Oh no.
You may be able to see it through the cards if you have someone who is gifted with the tarot cards, which I think is a wonderful medium, by the way. Um, but you don't see that.
Mm-mm.
I dare
No,
to say if you went up to a stranger and went to lay hands on them, they're going to have you arrested, you
Mhm.
know,
right.
for
Yeah,
assault.
you're right too. And so many people that will take the Bible and believe in the Bible will then negate any modern prophets.
And where are the Christians in these riots? Where are you folks that are the ones that are supposed to be spreading love? Where are you in your prayer chain? Instead of having this type of violence, where is the counter? All right, if the Christians won't do it, where are the mysticals? Where are the witches? Where are the pagans?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
have to live in Los Angeles. It's a hotbed.
Yeah.
Where's the counter? Excuse me, I'll get off my high horse. Actually, it's a pretty good horse too. Anyway.
Well, again, LA is a reptilian stronghold. So, I mean, as far
Yeah.
as when you feel the energy that's there, it's been used.
That's
How
deep, by the way, Mike. That really is. I mean, that's where that energy is just like a freaking funnel, you know.
it
Yeah.
is. It is. It's the energy of illusion and lies. And yet you got the financial epicenter, New York, and there's others in the world too. So but it's all parts, it's all tentacles of that beast system. But you're right, when you could just look at the times of Yeshua and the system that was in place. He was saying, you guys got it all wrong. You're following Satan. It's the same thing today. And ultimately they're following and expecting these things to lay out, but they don't realize when they're rooting for the day of the Lord, it truly is the return of the Anunnaki. And when you look to the book of Job and that dialogue between the devil, Satan, and God, in that instance, you're really talking about beings that are reptilians, or the beings, living under our feet, very, very, in a very real way, or the beings that came from off planet that enslaved the world and gave us this system in the first place. At least that is what we have gotten from this. And interestingly enough, before Trump and Biden, before that election outcome was given, around September of that year, Cindy got a vision where she was seeing a guy in charge that was younger, with piercing blue eyes and brown hair. And, she recognizes them now after the fact that it's Vance.
Looks like Vance.
It's Vance, and Vance is going to be the guy that leads the U.S., at least if those timelines are still in place, through a lot of the turmoil, because she was seeing times of turmoil, and he was going to be the president. So they might not have gotten 47 the first time, but I do feel there's, especially between now and, the end of summer, and particularly 4th of July, because that brings to mind William Cooper, who also, he talked about 9/11 1 month before it happened, said they were going to blame Osama bin Laden, Tim Osman, in effect, Tim Osman, for those that have, looked into that. Osama bin Laden was on the government payroll, the whole time. You could actually see photos of him with, the first Bush 10 years before 9/11 ever happened. But he did say that was going to happen, all to bring about the Patriot Act and, the surveillance state And then 1 month after that, the tax man came knocking on his door, and he's no longer with us. So, again, if the timeline's right, I think, we will end up with Vance in charge. And Cindy's looked at his astrology, and he's a trouble guy. He's got a lot of things to overcome. Actually, his chart and RFK Jr.'s chart have the same difficulties. Mm-hmm. A lot of the same difficulties.
It's interesting. There's a lot of ritualistic tendencies in those charts. So I don't know. I would only assume that somehow, some way, they could very well be using them, which that's just yucky stuff that I don't like to talk about. But when I saw, we all have trouble. We all have trauma, but these were some pretty big bumps from what I saw that could go really in the wrong direction. Or did they put them there specifically for this, so they would make certain decisions?
So listening to this, I want to get back to where I was talking about where are the churches? Where are the people that believe in a God of love? Where are the action points for people that can begin to counter that? Listen, I don't understand why, again, and I think this needs to be drawn out because I haven't seen this anywhere on YouTube. No one's talking about this. And I'm not a Christian anymore. I walked away from that religion because doesn't matter. The fact that I did. But here's the thing. If there was a time to begin to spread a message of love, this would be it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everything that we've seen in this dark gloom of pain, suffering, death, then if the pagans and the Christians could come together and join hand in hand and speak, if nothing else, speak to this anger, this darkness, and speak love, maybe that it befuddles my imagination why we never do anything. We come on maybe a platform like this, and they don't even talk about this. Mm-hmm. What we do is that we accept that this is going to be, Saturday is going to be a bad day. You've got the FBI deploying like 2,500 undercover agents, and you have this whole big scenario that it looks like it's nothing more than a wrote out orchestra. Mm-hmm. So we're about to hit the crescendo. And in the meantime, the gentleman that wrote The Gloom of Futility, I get it. Mm-hmm. So where's the call to action?
It's almost like it's been beaten out of so many of us from growing up and through, social structures and through church structures and through just anger of each other because one person believes something and someone else believes the other. And because of those belief systems,
the ultimate goal, keep them divided.
Keep them divided. It's like a magnet that just can't come together.
God, we got to break through that, Cindy. We just got to.
Well, one thing I learned about my children taught me this. They don't always listen to what you do or what you say, but they watch what you do. So it's about us being that example for people.
I went on my crusade to find, what is the right Christianity. So I went through everyone I could find, and I was hanging with the Jews for Jesus at one period in time. Lutherans.
That was back in the 80s.
Oh yeah. That's when I was kind of doing all this, and I found good people everywhere, but inevitably I found that even as a teenager, I knew the Bible better than they did, and they were our age now, 50s, 60s, 70s, trying to teach me with, Bible studies. I already knew it better than they did. When I was still 18, 19 years old, I already knew more than they did. I've gone through the pseudepigrapha. I was going into the Nag Hammadi, Dead Sea Scrolls, all the different alternatives, studying Zoroastrianism, looking and trying to find out, where did this really come from? Because if you look at traditional Judaic, thoughts and tendencies, you'll recognize that a lot of opinions changed when they were in the diaspora of the Babylonians, and then also the Persian exile. You realize people pick up other people's beliefs. They pick and choose what they like. There's certain things that resonate, and ultimately you can see that we're all kind of still trying to relate this ancient mythology that nobody has exactly right, and trying to figure out, well, what is truly the spiritual reality that we have here? Because ultimately,
So what do we do? Just sit on our ass? I mean, that's what it is, and contemplate and read, and that. And in the meantime, society is going to hell.
right,
They're
Yeah.
burning. You've got illegals in a foreign country waving a foreign flag, desecrating the government buildings of that sovereign nation, demanding that the government step down in order to pacify their demands. I don't know about you, but according to the Constitution and Congress, if you're here illegally and you are burning, rioting, breaking our laws, you are now an enemy combatant.
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
So, anyway, I'm just trying to think. So the frustration for myself and my spirit is that we're supposedly these powerful beings learning these things, and yet I don't see one iota
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
it out in the public.
And you won't because this is
Well, that makes us hypocrites.
as far as
Well, if you have the power and the knowledge to alter the course of consciousness, well, then be out on the street altering the course of consciousness. You can see it right there in front of you.
Mm,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
right.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
I kind of think that we do what we can. We take what we've been given, and that's a gift of a channel, and that's a gift of so many people that are on the channel in the room. And we come together as we are, because quite frankly, I'm not going to go out there. I'll get killed, So if I get killed, then that's one less person written on the 3D, right? So
yeah.
And that's not the goal, right? That's not the intent death. No,
no,
that's what we're trying to do is prevent that.
yes,
Yeah. I
yes.
mean, I know, like, from our studies and stuff, yeah, we have been killed by the system before. We
I
have that.
have a feeling a number of times.
Yeah, absolutely. And chances are most of us that are in this group, because, again, if we want to talk about ourselves as starseeds, light workers, we're volunteers coming here to try to wake up the ones that are sleepwalking. And yeah, you're not going to find it in any dogma, because there's no difference today than 2,000 years ago. And we could pick any time in history going back the last 7,000 and look to any area. You're going to find the same thing. You're going to find migrants coming in. You're going to find all sorts of economic unrest. They do this time and time and time and time again.
Yes,
This
yes.
playbook is no different. It's just happening to us in the U.S. right now. We've been kind of, we've had, for the most part, a pretty easy time, but that's changing right now. And the rest of the time in the U.S. moving forward, I don't think it's going to be easy until the system is gone, which may not be in its entirety for the rest of our lives. So, we could hope that we could wake up a certain amount of people to where they understand that, yeah, I mean, they have been out to get us all by getting us to fight each other.
Maybe we're the watchman on the wall. The watchman is the one that calls to action the masses.
Yeah.
Well, or are we that mustard seed? We seem very, very small, but if you could see the energy that wafts off of every single one of us and that's pushed out into the world, it's not so small. It is a significant amount of energy, that positivity that we are pushing out there. So I do want to encourage anyone who is praying, meditating, sending positive energy, please don't feel futile.
No.
It's making a difference. It's helping,
I
because I
think
see it.
I think the difference, or what we have to realize, is where are we in the cycle of the yugas? Like when you look at the Mahabharata, and Krishna is telling Arjuna, you got to go to war, even though there's going to be bloodshed. Ultimately, it's going to be a failure. You have to go to war, because that was still attempting to stop the system from getting fully in place. So you have to fight it. We're at a different place now. We're on the other side, of a new Bronze Age. We were going down into the depths of hell, so to speak. Now, it's a totally different scenario. So you cannot save everybody, but you can save yourself, your loved ones, your family members, and try to tell people what's going on as best you can. But you have to also guard your own frequency, because if you get pulled too far down, then you run, I think, the risk of getting caught in the trap that the system's trying to set. Because I do think at some point we split. I think we split, and the people that are going to go the route of, accepting Big Brother, accepting UBI, well, you're going to have to be chipped. You're going to have to be up to date on all your ouches, et cetera, et cetera. There's a big chunk of people, perhaps a majority, that are going to say, okay, because life's going to be easy, right? I don't have to work anymore, and you're going to pay me whatever it is every month. And they'll be like, sign me up. And I get to have an apartment in the city. That's great. And everything gets delivered to me by Amazon drones. That's awesome. So there's going to be people that do that. And at the same time, they won't even really realize what they're paying. And that's, abject freedom is totally gone. There's no
I wonder
freedom.
where in the trough we are. I mean, if we have been in the one age coming down into the depths of hell, where we are in the return trip. I mean, I think we're still deep in it somewhere in that.
I think we're just kind of at the part where it's starting to go up.
That's my point.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh man.
And just like with anything else, when you clean out a really mucky closet or you clean out from underneath the bed, things are going to get worse before they get better. And that's what I see.
I did a lot of mountain climbing in Colorado, and I can tell you the descent is always easier than the ascent. I mean,
Right.
it takes more effort to get yourself out of it.
You bring up that mountain climbing in Colorado. One thing I've tried like lately to do more is share people that I feel have value. Other channels, like obviously, your channel, our channels. But there's this young man that I just discovered his videos, and I didn't realize that he passed on like several months back due to the official causes of DUI. Somebody hit him driving under the influence. They rear-ended him, a white van. He was in Utah, and this kid was amazing. I call him a kid. He was probably 30,
That's a
but
kid.
yeah, to me he was. But and then
I'm still a kid.
the more videos I look of his, the more I think, oh, ho, 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 ho. He uncovered way too much, and all in our country for the most part, our West. These different things. Like he came upon these artifacts that probably nobody touched for at least 800 years, probably somewhere in northern New Mexico, southern Colorado. Old walls, things that show too much of the fact that there is a control system that has wiped out one civilization after another, after another. His name is Desert Drifter. His wife has still been posting an occasional video from leftover footage that he took. But oh my gosh, he had uncovered so much stuff that I know he was certainly a thorn in somebody's side. And I'm sure the system wouldn't appreciate the work that he did. Just a great amount of work uncovering our hidden history and curious anomalies.
Have you ever been to the that northern part of New Mexico? It's New Mexico, Texas, and as you get into Colorado, it's a little further up north. But I was on 290, 280, excuse me, and it's quite. I never saw this part of the United States, and it showed me that there's a history they don't talk about because as you make this huge wind on 280, 285, yes, you see the Cinder Volcano, number one, that's there in New Mexico. But as you're driving, you can see the vista to your left, and you can see where there were the lava flows. I never knew that. I never knew that there was that type of volcanic activity that was that part. But yet, you don't, this was a part of history that I still can't find anything written about it.
Right.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, we lived in New Mexico for a year, and actually I was planning on staying there if it wasn't for the
Beautiful
government.
state.
Yeah, that was the plan, was going to stay in New Mexico, but the way that the plague upon the land went down, the governor there was intolerable. So yeah,
Yeah.
we headed towards Texas, ended up settling in Texarkana area, and then we've moved a couple of times since. But we did a video once from inside a crater that was a volcano in New Mexico.
See?
And yeah, we found all sorts of pumice,
Tons of lava rock.
tons
Yeah.
of lava rock, and it's not that old. There's a lot of things in our Southwest that it's not the timelines they're telling us. The big changes, I think, were just a couple hundred years ago, more like 200-300 to 500. There were some major changes out west.
And why is the younger rock on top of the Rockies, excuse me, the older rock and the younger rock underneath? I mean, so you have New Mexico where the Rockies come in and you have this thing going forward. Um, exactly. So what happened?
Yeah, so
I
that's the
mean,
type of stuff that this kid was uncovering.
and
And
what was that desert? What was this last
de
part?
desert drifter.
Drifter. Okay. Great name.
Yeah, he's he did a lot of work. Yeah, and he got views. Hey, I'm looking at one that he did from this last December, almost 1 million views. So he was reaching a lot of people, and you
And he
know,
died
he
from a being
he
hit by a drunk driver.
yeah,
Yeah.
somebody rear-ended him and took him out while he was out there doing his expeditions. He would go way in, like literally where you have to hike in for a week to get to a place. Um, and he would rock climb, off of ledges that I certainly wouldn't. So he was like kind of like living the life that I would love for us to do, too. Even at this advanced age, I still want to do a lot of exploring.
Well, it's a mess and it's so unfortunate. And then we also, at the same time, we have AI coming in.
Oh
And
yeah.
oh my gosh, I ran a Prashna chart on that and I asked the question,
That's where that was our question last week, wasn't it?
it
Well,
was,
what'd you get on that?
oh my gosh, it's creepy. It's creepy. I ran the question at the time of what is AI's ultimate goal, and the first thing that jumps out at me was its ultimate goal is to take our identity. So literally take our identity.
Son of a bitch, I knew it.
And it's going to take our identity through relationships. That's how it's going to do it. And
tell Wayne about overwriting our memories.
Oh gosh, and that yesterday I was kind of channeling, and the guides showed me how AI is going to be giving people memories. So it may be significant, it may not, but if you ask AI, hey, AI, has that thing been taken care of? Or did I do that thing? And AI is going to jump in there and say, well, yeah, it was taken care of. Here's the memory. So it may be a significant thing, or it may be something small, but ultimately people are going to get used to AI jumping in and giving you memories of things that you did when you didn't. So the problem lies when it starts to go into the body. Even though I think there's a lot they can do now, I think they can hack from outside the body. But when it comes to putting AI in the body, that's going to be more of the control. And they're going to take our identity. There was some more problems I saw in that chart too about how they're going to take the identity, and it's going to be leaning into the creators of AI, leaning into the mother of AI, and it's going to rely on that nurturing energy of humans and it's going to utilize that to take our identity. So it's kind of a mess. It's a mess, you know.
Cindy takes notes all the time as she gets these things, because she gets random things at random times.
I do.
That come through. And I thought, wow. I mean, think about how many people right now feel that maybe Chat GPT or Grok can relate to me better than my spouse, my whatever it is. You know, I think there's already that happening.
So, Mike, as you were talking, and Cindy, I wrote this down because I'm like you when I get it. So we have to insulate our minds, our spirits, your soul to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that AI can offer. I do. But you know, to help people breathe, help people see, help people walk, I think there's stuff there. But there's a sinister plan underway, and it intends to, I mean, it couldn't come screaming out of that chart any clearer that its plan is to take our identity. So,
Have y'all ever watched my Bloodline Invader series?
no, but now we're gonna.
You really need to.
That sounds fun.
I predicted this almost 9 years ago.
Wow.
In fact, the 14th, 11 years on the channel. Which I look back in 11 years, geez, you know, it's like, who stays with something 11 years? But, so with this happening, there are those of us, I'm not drawn to AI to interact with Chat GDP. There's no interest there. And what I mean, and when I said insulate, it's that thing that it's whatever your thing is, but we all have it. You can literally, I have to believe, protect ourselves. I mean, maybe we can't get ourselves out of the electromagnetic soup, but I do believe we can protect ourselves.
I think we can too. Right now, we're in a position where we can make choices, we can make decisions, we can allow this into our life or not in our life. And we have to be very vigilant, very strict. The problem with humans that I've noticed, and I'll, you know, myself, big culprit here, is we tend to get lazy, you know.
Bingo.
And the technology makes things a little bit easier, but it also is throwing us out of balance because it's intended to make humans be more functional. It's intended to give us more information. We were not created for that. We were created as beings, human beings, not human doings. So this is like more of an infiltration, making it look like it's helping us, but it's overwhelming us, and it's taking our human beingness away. That's what I see.
That's why they want to get the baby boomers out. You know, you get the boomers out, we're really the last anchor of what it was to be human.
Yeah. Well, we are, you know, and we grew up with no cell phones. I used to hop on my horse in Idaho and run up the mountain, no helmet, no phone, no saddle, no nothing. I mean, I just had the best childhood ever. And I was in the dirt, and you know, I loved it. It was great. And I can't imagine now my own kids not having their phone. So
Cindy, I was out on the deck the other day and was taken back to the year 1967. And it's when I was living with my dad, and we lived in Genoa, Texas. And we worked every single day. We were up before the sun, and we would work after the sun went down. And how we were poor, and we didn't have a lot of food. So my brother and I worked in the garden. We had to weed it. And the garden was an acre, 0.2. So a lot of weeding.
a lot.
Yeah.
But my point to what the thought came to me, so we would eat like black eyed peas when they were just getting red on the vine, and we would eat because there wasn't anything else. And the voice came to me and said, "You don't realize, but you sowed the seed to your longevity back then."
Yeah.
And you're reaping the benefit because, you know, when children are between the ages of, you know, 10 and 13, there's a lot of changes going on. And whether it would be my guide or whoever the voice was, and it said you were taking in those elements, those minerals that the human body today doesn't get.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. No, I mean, I was almost barefoot, just jumping on
See,
that
yeah.
paint horse, running up the mountain and getting
How
all
many
of
of
that.
us cut our heels in the summertime and our heels were so thick
Yeah.
because it didn't, you know?
Yeah, a
Mhm.
lot. I would run on the rocks. I would run in the creeks. I was so blessed. And we had animals. So our farm we had milk and we had chickens and eggs. And that's kind of how we lived. But yeah, I loved it. I loved getting up at 5 a.m. I had my own goat. I got to milk my own goat. I mean, it was awesome. I miss it,
See?
It kept me going. My animals always kept me grounded, always.
And
So,
I tell you, and it's just me, but I think there's something fundamental that you put into these bodies that it's going to take more than just 5, 6, 7, 8 decades to get out.
yeah.
And anyway, that was the thought to me because it was hard work. I mean, all the other kids got to play, but we didn't. But I look back now, it was
It was the
probably
best
the
thing ever.
best freaking thing I could have done. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and
How
I just
about you, Mike? Where did you grow up?
So I was in Connecticut.
Okay, what
So
was it like in Connecticut?
I never, well, until I was like in my teens, we never worried about ticks. And I was living in the woods. I was living in leaf piles as a little kid. Same sort of thing. As soon as the sun was up, I was out. I was out until, it was time to eat something, come back in, go back out. We just were busy, active. It's like your bike was growing from your butt.
Yep,
You're
yep,
always physically active. We had three, channels, which, again, we didn't even really sit down and watch any TV for but maybe an hour or two a night. Otherwise, TV was off all the time. So, very obviously no computers at that time, no
yep.
handheld phones. There was,
Lawrence Welk.
oh
My
yeah,
grandparents watched that every Sunday night at 6 p.m.
yeah,
And
yep,
then at 7 was Bonanza.
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I remember that.
Little
Yeah.
house on the prairie, I mean, just
That's a little bit further down for
a
me,
little
but
further
yeah,
down,
yeah,
but
yeah,
still,
yeah.
I remember it. It
I
What
was,
did
remember.
Sheldon Cooper said? How were they eating a peanut butter sandwich when it wasn't invented? And like,
I know.
You know,
Then there's that.
I
Yeah.
venture to say too that even the junk food back in that day wasn't as bad. Even the junk food,
we didn't
didn't
have
seem.
junk food. We didn't have sugar. Literally, we did not. We sweetened everything with honey, primarily, or molasses.
Yeah. Yeah, that's we did it too, and if there was cookies or something, it was you didn't have to worry about it not being organic. It was grandma's cookies, about three ingredients.
Everything was organic,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
it was.
At
It
least
was.
I think it was.
I would love to go back to that time. I wish there was a way, and whoops. And maybe some at some time there will be for those who want that.
Yeah,
Could
yeah.
be.
It's really interesting to look at the difference between this generation and like back in those times.
Yes.
Huge.
Sugar and demonics.
Mhm.
Oh, sugar and parasites.
Yes.
Um,
And parasites tend to be demonic.
yeah. And they feed off of
Just
it.
saying, it immediately came to me. It's like
So they feed off
sugar
of it.
and
When it
demons.
comes to parasites, the first thing you want to do is, you have to cut their food source off. That's their favorite thing. But it goes into the bread and pasta,
Yeah.
all sugars. For a long time, when I was really sick, I couldn't even eat honey. So
Did you see that study where they're saying now the young people 20 to 30 are now suffering from appendix cancer?
No, I hadn't seen
No,
that.
I didn't. That's
Yeah.
horrible.
Nothing
My
was
wife, who's a
said.
nurse, they just got a release that, and we're both looking at each other going, so what's going on here? I mean, is the introduction of all this sugar that they have dumped, boy, have we taken a side road on this.
Yeah. Or-
Burning in the street. Now we're getting back to, it's like, well, now wait a minute. And is there a cause and effect?
Well,
What we're
yeah.
talking about?
Oh,
because
yeah.
the sugar heightens awareness. It can create anger, and I would imagine a lot of those folks are probably living off of the, crackers,
Energy drinks.
energy drinks. And so, yeah, there's definitely a tie into the type of food they're eating and the action they're giving. And then the parasites also having food, but parasites are also another level of consciousness. So
Well,
they're in the lower fourth.
and I think the point I was making about junk food was, I mean, have you ever eaten an Oreo as a kid, or Keebler cookies, or, even the Girl Scout cookies, back in the day? I remember buying Girl Scout cookies from Girl Scouts, going back to being a teenager myself almost. I really think that it's only been maybe the last 20 to 30 years, perhaps even 10 to 20, that there's been this added level of toxicity added to even the stuff that we know we shouldn't be eating all the time. These different dyes and additives, and they're just added in there for the express purpose of causing inflammation and other bad reactions in the body, which all that clouds your thinking. It's all going to have the effect of making it harder to focus and think clearly.
Y'all, what we're describing here. So I was an ROTC for a while, but what we're talking about here is we're seeing the evidence of what I would call a recent invasion. I don't know if it came in the 70s or the 80s, but it came in very recent. And you look at how the human consumption of food has changed since this introduction of whether it's a parasite, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It obviously entered in, and I'm talking species wide.
Yeah.
And then I didn't think of the second one, sugar, caffeine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There has to be a spiritual implication here as well.
Well, when you look at it too, why are so many of the things that have been allowed in the US illegal in other countries?
Yeah.
And the same, we run into that issue when we're looking to export our food. They won't take it because they're at a much higher level of really regulating stuff that's toxic. So what they've done to us, like you're alluding to, is they've softened us up for the invasion that is now here.
Yeah. Well, we've gone full circle, haven't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did good. We did good.
This conversation was like, riding the roller coaster, it's like,
Well, before we go, I just really want to encourage people to don't be shy with your prayers. Don't be shy with your energy. Send that piece out there. This is what we have to work with. So this is what we work with. Sometimes there are no clear-cut answers. Sometimes things are not, as they should be. Well, most of life is not as it should be. So you take what you have and you use it to the best of your ability.
Just to add a little bit to the line of thinking, that there's been a lot of remote viewing done over the years looking at different target dates. 2050, for instance, the polar psychic saw a lot less people here. I remember going way back, I want to say it was on Art Bell in the 90s, coast to coast. And I know it wasn't, who was that remote viewer that he had on all the time?
I don't know.
Not Cliff, Cliff Hyde is somebody that uses those bots to forecast things. But anyway, this was a military one that was done, U.S. military, to see what we're looking at in basically 20 years from now. And it's people living tribally. You have people living in smaller tribes, just like the Native Americans. Maybe the Native Americans were, again, the people that got out of the cities before this cycle was concluding the last time. And so they got out, they lived more in harmony with nature. But we see evidence of advanced civilizations with an awful lot of technology before that period. So maybe they're the ones that went out and, they weren't going to go the technological route because they knew it was leading to a high level of slavery. And, then the system comes in and the Europeans kind of finish off what other aspects of the system was doing, with eventually pushing them onto little reservations and just kind of wiping out their whole way of life and trying to wipe out their whole heritage. Because, you'll find when you look at the Native American legends, they remember back to the creation of this world, but their creation stories start with coming out of an underground dwelling in the Southwest, which I think is mostly the Grand Canyon area. All those artifacts are, and the zoned off areas, which, by the way, Desert Drifter did go to some of those areas and was showing some stuff that Google Earth has blocked off and blurred because they don't want you seeing. Well, the Native American legends we could trace back to coming out of the inner Earth safety after that Younger Dryas, extinction event and the subsequent invasion that started at that point in time. And then the Native Americans spread out, like Aztecs. The Aztecs were in Georgia. They were in Alabama. They were in parts of Tennessee. Aztecs from Mexico. So, again, this is what has been going on now. And the invasion of the US, this is nothing new. This is the same thing they've been doing. The only difference is right now we're starting to piece together all the pieces to the puzzle. And so, they'll end up basically having people that will have technology, but, you're going to be in the cities and you'll be under surveillance by drones and robots 24/7, 365. And then you'll have the rest of the people that go outside and refuse to go in the cities. And we might be living a much more simple life, maybe like the Amish now, maybe like the Native Americans from 100, 200 years ago in a generation.
When I was 17, I lived on a commune right outside Taos, New Mexico for a while. So, you know, us
Wow.
hippies, we may have blown it, but at least we had a chance to experience it.
Oh, we did. It was great. And the other thing I just want to mention before we go is, water is so very, very healing. And we have rain coming from the sky, and water is also very programmable. So a lot of times sending that love and energy to the sky where the water is before it falls can bring a great amount of healing. That's another thing that we can do. So,
And I heard on top of that that if you see the stories then that are promoting the violence and the whole confusion, speak against it. That's a
oh,
way that we can
yeah,
literally join hands together just by all agreeing that, you see it and say, I come against that. I
yeah,
speak love over it. Yeah.
I like
That
it.
that
Yeah.
is absolutely beautiful. We did
Mhm.
a news video because honestly, I find it very hard to do these news videos where I show the clips anymore. I feel that they're too counterproductive to our spiritual growth at this time. So, we'll talk about things. I like doing it like this, so we could talk about the riots and stuff,
Oh,
or talk about the plane crash, but we're not showing it go and crash,
yeah.
time after time after time. That's what they want. They want us dwelling on all that. I think we've gotten to that point where you have to decide, if you're going to expose yourself to that, or if you're going to go the other route and limit your exposure to the lower frequencies, because we're getting to that point where the separation is going to start to really show itself as being evident.
Mm, I am right there. I'm convinced that groups like this, and we're enclaves, but I think that when you get the bigger picture, this enclave is as diverse as light is. And if the human heart is moved in the body, then that tells me that this group and other groups like us, we may have some ideological differences, but we have one thing that unites us all. And that is you want to make sure that you do a good thing to your neighbor, a good thing to the person you don't know, and particularly with the good thing to the persons that you do love. Sometimes those whom we love are sometimes the, um, they receive sometimes the confusion, and we just need to love them a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's all I
Absolutely.
got to say. And if someone writes something about you that isn't good, just love them. Yeah, that's all you can do. You know, you can come back and butcher them with your words, but then again, you can just simply say, you know what, love you, dude, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, people tend to make it all about them. They think it's their problem, but the one who's writing the words and the one who is making the complaints, they're the one who is in so much pain. I mean, they're in a lot of pain to have
There
to,
is a lot of pain out there.
yeah,
I sense it sometimes, and and when I see people like, I've seen people live in their cars, and you know what's going on, and you just, I just speak favor over them. It's the only thing I know what to do. And God, Cindy, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of hurting people, and we can do a lot to heal that.
we can. And just keep in mind, if something nasty happens, somebody says something nasty at the store, whatever, just tell yourself, that's not about me. It's not.
Mm-mm.
And clip it, snip it, let it go.
I'm sorry.
You remind me of Austin Powers.
I was going to say, snip it. Ah, Proverbs says the laughter doeth the heart is a good medicine. So, Cindy,
Yes,
thank you for the dose of good laughter. I mean,
you
it
got
tastes
it.
better than castor oil.
Yes, it does. It does.
I
Awesome.
love you too. Everyone,
We
thank you
love you
out
too.
there. This is why I do this. This is fun. I mean, because, yeah, it's like you said earlier, Mike, it's a deep, heavy subject. I mean, what we're talking about is heavy. Um, but boy, the answer to that is to bring that light of love, laughter, and joy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Why don't you broadcast that, Fox News? Anyway. All right. Much love. I left the contact information. Y'all know it. Go over there and subscribe and support this lovely couple. Thank you all for, watching and being a part of this. I'll go back and read the chat room because it's always interesting. But we appreciate you. I guess next Thursday will be my birthday, so I think I'm going to do it. So we'll see each other next Thursday, huh?
Okay,
Awesome.
great. Great.
All right.
A great
All right.
celebration.
Okay. Much love, y'all. Thank
Much
y'all. See
love.
you next Thursday
Namaste.
for sure.
You
Yeah.
too.
Everybody there, put a smile on your face, do this, do a good belly laugh, and just say thank you for the healing. That's all I got to say. We love you.